Today is the 4th of Tammuz, the 10th of July. We're up to the 5th chapter of Shorish Mitzvah Setfila and Derech Mitzvah Secha. And we were building up to this Medrash. Now he's going to quote from Parshas Shmos, when Moshe Rabbeinu asks Hashem what his name is. This is what the sages said in Midrash Rabbah, Parshas Shmos. בעניין מאמר משה רבנו עליו השלום ואמרו לי מה שמו, מה אומר עליהם. Moshe Rabbeinu asked Hashem, if they ask me, the Jewish people, the Israelites will ask me, what is his name, what shall I tell them? And what does it mean that they'll ask me what is his name? They'll ask me what is his essence. שהיה מבקש משה שיודענו הקדוש ברוך הוא את שמו הגדול. Moshe Rabbeinu was asking God to tell him his great name. אמר לה הקדוש ברוך הוא למשה, שמי אתה מבקש לידע? So God answered Moshe, he said, you want to know my name? לפי מעשיי אני נקרא. I am known by my actions. Which would not be a bad idea for a lot of people. Yeah, instead of a name, so what do you do? When you do something, maybe you have a name. פעמים שאני נקרא בשם כל שקי. Sometimes I am called Kel Shekai, sometimes Tzvakot, sometimes Lokim, sometimes Avaya. Why do I have all these names? The Medrash continues, כשאני דן את הבריות אני נקרא Elokim. When I judge my creation, I am called Elokim. וכשאני עושה מלחמה ברשעים, and when I wage war against the wicked, אני נקרא Tzvakot. I am called Tzvakot. Tzvakot mean hosts. That's how they usually translate it, meaning like an army. וכשאני תולה חטאיו של אדם, אני נקרא כל שקי. And when I defer the sins of a person, I am called kel shakai. It's very interesting. This is what he connects to kel shakai. Meaning that I defer judgment. I wait.
Or no, okay, it's deferring of judgment. It isn't. It's
not chesed. He's not doing loving kindness.
In other words, I'm just trying to see where that fits into the name.
So apparently, what he's saying here is that this is the offshoot of Tiferet. Tiferet is usually compassion, and compassion would be to completely strike it out. But here he's saying Kel Shakai is foundation, is Yesod.
Okay.
And then, so I guess there he's talking about deferring it. It's not complete compassion, but. And when I have compassion over my world, then I'm called Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the Tetragrammaton. Because Havaya indicates the measure of compassion. Ad kan lashon midrash. This is what the Medrash says. So we don't have time now. There's a lot to say about this Medrash. This is, one of the most important Midrashim in the entire corpus of the Medrash. In any case, and as we said, I mentioned a few classes ago, this Medrash is brought in length, analyzed in length, in the Pardes by the Ramak, Rabbi Moses Cordovero, in Gate 4, Chapter 2. So the first thing we learn from this Medrash is that the names refer to God's very self, His very essence. And how do we know this? Because it says, I am called Kel Shakai. He refers to himself as I. I am called Elokim. Derotze lomar, hu yitbarach mamash. Meaning, it is referring to He Himself. ואף על פי כן, ממה שכתוב לפי מעשיי אני נקרא. And nonetheless, the fact that he says that I am known by my actions, my name is given to me relative to my actions. מובן שהשמות אלו אינן לא יתברך מצד מהותו ועצמותו ממש, אלא מצד מעשיו. So we learn that even though these names do refer to the essence, they are not describing the essence, but describing the action. והיינו מצד התלבשותו בספירותו. And the way we explained it yesterday and the day before is that what does this mean? His actions, the way he encloses himself, the way he imbues himself, the way he reveals himself through the Sefirot. Each one of the Sefirot is a basis for a different type of action. That by imbuing himself in them and clothing himself within the Sefirot, that's how he acts through them and with them in this world, this limited reality. And again, when you think about a limited reality, it doesn't necessarily mean that everything here is limited. It means that that's the world that we come in contact with. Meaning that our senses, our mind, mostly our senses, but also our mind to some extent, finds it very difficult to look at the world as something infinite. We interpret reality in a very limited way. It doesn't mean that reality really is that limited.
Yeah.
It could be that it's not limited at all.
Yes.
And that's why science is always going to change, because in limits you can keep going, and you can't reach infinity. If you could reach infinity completely, maybe you would have a total theory of everything. But since you can't, and you're always just taking chunks out of reality and analyzing that. I wanted to say something yesterday, I forgot about it. The best parable I have for the Sefirot and God's essence that's within them is electricity in our houses, household electricity. So we have multiple outlets in the house, and all of them give out the same voltage. Alternating current in Israel 220, in America 110, in Israel 50 hertz, in America 60 hertz. And you don't say plug the electricity in. What do you say? You say plug the heater in. You say plug the dishwasher in. You say plug the computer in. Plug this, plug that. Nobody relates to the electricity itself unless you have a problem with your main. Right? But the main is like God himself. It's like God's light, not God himself, but God's light that's coming into all these outlets. And depending on what vessel you put into the outlet, the vessel, the type of vessel could be a motor, which is like a vacuum cleaner, or a coil, which is like a heater, or it could be a computer, which is just a converter from alternating current to direct current. These are like the Sefirot. They're still not what you want. What you want is the effect that the motor, the coil, the converter is going to give you on something else.
But you're saying that the coil is like a
sphere.
Yes, but it's not
which
the coil,
takes
it's what it gives out.
What I want is what it gives out. That's the action.
That's the action. Right. Yes.
But I need to have this intermediate between the outlet and between the effect that I want, and that's a sphere.
That's good.
And the electricity that's everywhere in the house, that is like the light, the infinite light, because it fits everything. It'll drive anything that's suited to it. Now, what I just said is that it's not only that there is 220 volts with 50 hertz alternating current in the world. There's much more. If you go to any of these power lines, they're at 330. Even in America, they're 330. In Israel, and then you have high voltage power lines, which could be 1,000 volts, 2,000 volts, with tremendous amperage, like a ton of current going through them. You have no tools to tap into that.
No.
There's no household appliance that you can connect to any of those. It won't work. So what it means is, what we're saying is that it could be that there's a whole world out there of godly revelation that we don't know about. And it might be that it's there. It doesn't bother me, because something has to drive this whole system. What I'm interested in the end, and this is the outlook of someone who has Torah, is that Hashem told me these are the things you need to do. And so He prepared outlets that fit the type of things I need to do. I need to daven, I need to eat kosher, I need to learn Torah, I need to take a lulav and etrog, I need to do all these things. And I have the motors, the coils, the alternators, whatever it is needed for those mitzvahs. I'm equipped with them.
Yes.
He's not asking me to go connect to a high voltage power line.
Yes.
Not at all. Are there people who know how to connect to a high voltage power line? Yes, there are. But that's not run-of-the-mill Judaism. It's not what I normally need. Well, in extreme cases, it might be that I need something like that. If there's a storm and everything's out, and the only thing I can connect to is a high voltage power line, and it's an emergency, I have to power a hospital, whatever. So maybe, right. So tzaddik is equipped in some way to connect to something different. But this is an analogy I used to use in previous years. I think it's good. It's good in many ways to illustrate this to people, to understand what the difference between an action and a sefira and the infinite light of the infinite revelation of Hashem is. Where were we? Through the sefirot, he does the actions in this world. לדון את הבריות, to judge the creations, על ידי מידה גבורתו, through his גבורה, הכלולה מחב"ד ושאר מידות הקדושות. And one of the things to know is that even his gvura is inter-included with all the other sefirot. It's just that he's showing right now, because the infinite light has all of it, right? The electricity in my outlet can power anything. So it has everything in it. And then when he actually judges, then he's called Elokim. This name refers to judgment. But really, it's the name Elokim. When I utter it, I don't mean the act of judgment, I mean he himself. Because it's like saying it's electricity itself that's doing this. It just happens to be that this is through this and this instrument. And he himself is enclosed within the sefira, otherwise the sefira has no power, it can't do anything. But if I want to, almost intellectually, but it's not just intellectually, I want to talk about the vacuum cleaner, I talk about the vacuum cleaner. I want to talk about judgment, I talk about the sefira of gvura. That's how it works. V'gvura, din or pachad, and it has connotations. Could be din, could be called pachad, fear. V'lo nikra ota b'shem Elokim. We'll never call the sefira itself by the name Elokim, because it's not Elokim. Elokim is the electricity that's driving it. That's Hashem himself. Ki inena eloka ela ne'etzal, because the sefira, the instrument that I'm plugging into, the outlet, that is not a God, it is a creation. It is a creation. And when he enclosed himself within victory and acknowledgement, netzach v'hod, in order to make war, to wage war against the wicked, then we call him tzvakot. But he himself is called tzvakot. He himself is called hosts. Because he's now enclosed within these two measures, these two sefirot. And this is like waging war. Just to say that, where do we know that netzach v'hod is to wage war against the wicked? There's a pasuk, which I don't remember which is where, Isaiah maybe, that their victory will sprinkle on my clothing. Meaning that this is related to a war. I don't remember the verse exactly right now, so I don't want to say all kinds of drushim on this. But netzach, we see, again, everything is, how do we know netzach is this? Because we have verses in the Tanakh that show us that netzach is related to something particular. And the sages said that netzach is the building of Jerusalem. Really, the Medrash just says, "V'netzach zu Yerushalayim." The netzach is Jerusalem. Here it says it's the building of Jerusalem. And we see on the war that Saul waged against Amalek, there Samuel said to him, when he didn't finish them off, he said the victory, the netzach of Israel will not falter. It won't go back on its word, meaning that even though you didn't finish the job, eventually the job will be finished. ועוד יש ביאור פרטי בשם זה מכבוד the Alter Rebbe, וממנו יובן היטב גם כן עניין עננה בשאר השמות. And he says there's a long explanation from the Alter Rebbe that explains each one of the Sefirot and why that's the name chosen for that Sefirah, the different verses, and so on. So now we have a good parable about electricity, and understanding the difference between an action, which is the end result, and the Sefirah itself. Okay, so we'll end here.